We'll start off with Alicia Anderer. Everybody knows Alicia. Been a staple in this business for so long. One of the longest standing coordinators. Like, held the position for, what, 13 years? Like, it's absolutely insane. Most other people would crumble under that. But yeah, and so she's here to talk about, she's been working with the Big E for countless years, just making that event one of the top in the nation. She's going to offer some perspective from that. We also have Nicole Reed. Nicole Reed was instrumental in making the Epcot event the biggest that it has ever been. This year, they tabbed, what was it, $954,000, and that was the #1 tabbed event in the nation this year, which is really, really exciting to just like see the way that that's just been taken to the next level in such like a relatively short amount of time. And then we also have Leah Eliopoulos coordinating Southland, working the LA County Fair, traditionally the largest event that we have in the nation. And so like coordinating that show is that's not an easy thing. So it's the #1 event. It was the first event to do $1 million at a fair. And I'm sure that all of these events are going to be $1 million events, if not this next year and the next couple of years. So let's go ahead and bring them up. We got them all up here. Awesome, ladies. Each of you is going to have about 10 minutes. I'll have cue cards in the back. Just you can give me a nod that you're recognizing and seeing them. Let's go ahead and just get it started.
Hey, guys. All right, so I was asked to speak about the largest show in the Northeast, which is, for us, is the Big E. Yep, Big E is 17 days long. Last year we did 418,000. Planning for this event starts the week after the Big E is over. So the big thing with this talk is us talking about the timeline and how much time we put in to planning these big events. So to back it up a bit, I've been working the Big E for about 10 years. About 7 years ago, we did about 120,000. So to think about in just 7 years, we were able to quadruple it. It's pretty cool. How did we do that? 3 things. We added a second booth. We raised our standards for people working, and we have better training, okay? We had that vision of getting that second booth. It wasn't very easy. A lot of different challenges. When I was asked to start helping figure out how to get that second booth, I was like, oh yeah, I got this. I told my region manager, like, no problem. And I quickly learned it wasn't that easy. The only way you can request a booth at all at the Big E is a letter. You have to write a letter. There's no application. If you call, they don't let you talk to the promoter. You can't get their direct line. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty silly to me to think that's how they do their picking for a Big E. Thousands and thousands of letters they have to read through. Doesn't sound the most efficient, but that's how they do it. So over the years, we've been writing these letters every January. We started sending free Cutco, right, to try and help out a little bit. Michelle and I even baked him a cake. We baked him a cake. We got an engraved spreader. We found out when the promoter was having a baby. We bought him baby gifts. We've literally tried all different angles. We talked to their friends. What is he into? What does he like? Oh, he likes cars. We were trying to any way that we could get to him. We tried. It was pretty interesting. I mean, finally we had a vendor, after 7 years of trying, that I was building a relationship with because I knew he was friends with the promoter. And I strategically was building that relationship because I knew that they were close, right? So finally at the right time, I was like, hey, do you mind sitting down and have breakfast with me? And I just asked him, what's the deal? Why do you think he can't get us a second booth? And long story short, I was able to use that relationship to get that second booth. He put it in the word. We got the call. We were like, thank God, finally, after 7 years, So if you guys are trying to get that second booth, you gotta know that sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes they're like, yeah, great, we'd love to have you. You could have 10 booths if you want. But then sometimes it's really hard. So the preparation in it, just make sure you know when the process that they want you to submit the application, right? Make sure you know when, don't miss that deadline, and just be super, super persistent. So as far as the timeline goes, so he asked to talk about the full year timeline that we have. So like I said, we start planning for the Big E the week after the Big E's over. We have our review call. So that way we're not forgetting all the things that we were thinking about, right? So the whole team gets on a call, and we have about an hour-and-a-half call to see what went good, what went bad, what can we change. So that's really important to do. January, we write the letter for the booth. Every single year, we have to write that letter. February is when we start sharing the standards. So this shows in September, by the way, but we want to give our region enough time to know what they need to hit to be able to qualify for the Big E. And just to share with you guys, we kind of upped our standards. You have to be at 250K in career sales. You have to have a minimum of 100K sold the year before, 75K before SC2, and you have to work at least 10 shows in a calendar year. And of course, be a team player. So we have pretty high standards to work the Big E, which is really exciting, and that we just keep raising them. So February, they know what they need to hit. By March, we schedule all the calls. I learned from Josh, he always said, like, you can't schedule calls and meetings without giving them options first. We used to just be like, you know, June 1st, be there or you're not working. And we found, like, can't really do that sometimes. So give a couple options, give some time, give plenty of months ahead for them to put this in their schedule so there's no excuses for them to miss it. In April, we booked guest speakers, and we also figured out our marketing plan, which is about 5 months out. In May, we order booth upgrades, and then we have our call in June. We have a call in July, and then we have our meeting in August. So literally every month, we're doing something to plan for the Big E. You just want to keep finding ways, I know I only have 10 minutes, so just remember to keep finding ways, get different angles, and don't stop when you're trying to get a second booth or a larger booth. Make sure you step up your game and raise those standards. And just really understand a second booth can be challenging, but just don't stop. And make a timeline for yourself. That was the biggest thing. Figure out your deadlines for your team and what works for you guys, and make sure you just hit them and share them with your team. That's what I got for you guys. Thanks.
Okay. So when I first took over for the NFL events team, Epcot sold 197 that year. We got moved to a new location. It was absolutely horrible. And we were in a little dark corner in a circular building where you wouldn't think they have corners, but they had a corner for us, and we sucked it up that year. So that was my first year. And so I kind of came in on this ignorance on fire mission that we were going to make this way better than it had ever been. And looking back, I broke it down into 4 main things that I feel like have really made the biggest impact on our organization as a whole, but also on our Epcot event. So the first thing would just be vision. Again, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was not the highest person in career sales on my team. There were multiple people who were double, triple, quadruple, and then some in career sales on my team. So I was definitely fighting an uphill battle, trying to make changes that people weren't necessarily ready for. But I just kept pushing and kept sharing these big numbers and saying, we can do it, and it's gonna happen. And eventually it did. So another thing I wrote down was facilitating a learning environment. What we did, so when I first started cross-training or started coaching with Josh, I started learning all of these new approaches, and Ray was really instrumental with that. And so I think one of the big things there was we started running these little optional advanced trainings because, again, not all the veterans on our team were really ready to get on board. And so we started hosting these little meetings at our house with anybody that wanted to come. If you didn't want to come, we don't care. If you do want to come, we're going to give you the best information that we have access to. And so the people that came, we literally would go round robin, drill for skill, paragraph by paragraph through the scripts until everybody in the group got it down. And what was really exciting about that is the people that came to those events, a lot of them were not in the $500,000 career sales, $1 million career sales range. It was some of our newer people. And then we put those newer people at the booth, and they started hanging with and even outperforming some of the people who'd been in the business for way longer than those people had. And that, I think, was the real aha moment for our team that, hey, maybe Nicole's not crazy and she's not just trying to make change to make me miserable. Maybe there's something to this. And so that was the point, and I don't know if any of you guys can relate to that, having some pushback from people who've been in the business and been doing buy two, get one frees for the last decade or more. But that was a big thing for us, is at the end of the day, you're gonna get buy-in from the people who you're gonna get buy-in from, and some people you're not. So if you just pour all of your energy into the people that do trust you and make it worth their while, eventually the rest will come. Recognize and reward what you want repeated. So this was something we started doing, more consistent communication. So throughout the event, I know a lot of people do this, but we created a team WhatsApp group. And so we would share our progress week by week. It's like, okay, so last year we did this. This year we did this. So now, based on that number and how many days we have left, we are on pace to do 800,000 for Epcot. So guys, if we're gonna get to $1 million this year, we need to pick up the pace, but great job, and just continually like, this is where we're at on pace for our goal, or not on pace for our goal. So that everybody was always 100% in the loop every single week. They knew exactly where we were, exactly what they need to contribute on their shifts that week. And then they could kind of move forward from there. On the topic of rewarding what you want repeated. So that was something where when I first took over, it was kind of if you were working the event, everybody kind of got a fairly equal amount of days. Where, again, we don't do shift picking, we assign shifts, and so before Epcot, I have multiple, I think we probably had like 30 hours of conference calls, three-way calls with my region manager and DVM and myself to talk about what we felt each person should deserve on our team this past year. But previously, it was like, okay, cool, you've been running Epcot for a while, awesome, you get your days, we didn't really look at results. And so that was one big thing that we started doing, was as people started getting bigger and better results, tracking that, recognizing the people who were getting the results, and then with our new DVM, he was really serious about rewarding those people and recognizing the people who were getting the bigger results and making the event sell as much as possible. And that's something that I think it's easy for, I don't know if easy is the best word, but it's easy for us to kind of get caught up in wanting to make people happy. And then there's also the line where at the end of the day, my job as a coordinator is to make each and every event sell as much as possible. And so my job is to staff the events to make them sell as much as possible. And that means having our best people at our best event. And that was one other thing that really we started making it extremely clear that if you are number one, you get more days. If you're number two, you don't get as much as number one, but you get more days. And if you are the worst person on the team, well, you're significantly, like if we have somebody that's significantly underperforming, well, maybe this isn't an event that you should be part of. Or maybe you shouldn't be getting as many days as you've been getting for the last decade. And that's not a comfortable situation to be in. But just recognizing that at the end of the day, you can either rise to the occasion, step up your game like everybody else has, and we can all win together, or you can just keep doing your thing, and I don't know. So the last thing that I wanted to share that I feel like is more of just a personal thing for me as a coordinator, I wrote down let go. So this is another thing, Brian mentioned it earlier, that like you don't have to be right 100% of the time. You don't have to have 100% of the responsibility. And some of you guys will think I'm crazy. So our team did 1.75 million, 197 events, and I still do all of the recaps and like 95% of the booking request forms. Finally, like, allowed a couple people to submit booking requests. I have one guy on my team, and then Ray, that are allowed to submit booking requests for service events only. But other than that, so the 190 events that are, or 185 events that were not service events for our team last year, did all of that. And so it's just the process. And so there used to be another thing too, where it was like, okay, you find an event, don't contact the promoter. Send the information to me. We want one point of contact. I do everything. And so we weren't reaching out to events and all of that. And this is not the point of the message. But I say that just to kind of establish the premise that I'm a complete control freak. And I know that if I'm doing something, I can do it well, but I definitely was becoming that bottleneck for our organization, where I think, to bring it back to Epcot this year, just empowering our people and knowing that at the end of the day, we have a badass squad of people that are ambitious and they want to get better and they want to be a better version of themselves. And at the end of the day, if individually we all accomplish what we want to accomplish, the team goal, one, doesn't really matter, but two, it's completely possible. So just releasing yourself from the pressure and the anxiety and the stress of it has to be my way or the highway and I have to do everything, just opening it up after Epcot this year, the day after we had like a team bonding day. We were supposed to do like a recap meeting of Epcot, and it was supposed to be like 3 hours. We ended up, by choice, choosing to spend like 8 hours talking about policies and how things went well and what didn't go well and what we want to change and where we see the event going and where we see the program going. And it was just crazy that we haven't done that before. So I think just the idea of letting go and empowering your people and embracing the fact that we have awesome people in our organizations, and a lot of times we're not the best person in the room. Not to say that anybody's better than anybody, but just allowing other people to make an impact too.
Okay. Both of you ladies, we have a lot in common. I'm kind of a control freak too. And then Alicia, the stuff you talk about getting the second booth and what you got to do. Okay, so I have actually two key events that I coordinate. One is the Orange County Fair, which got us into it like over a decade ago. And that was one of those things that sponsorship was the way to go. And so we paid 20 grand for that booth for 23 days. And then last year, we were finally able to get a booth in the other building, that's a 16 by 8, and we spent $16,800 on that booth. So we spent a lot of money for one of our key events, whereas LA Fair, where I coordinate 3 knife booths, and we have Korean with cookware, and we spent cookware alone 40 grand, and the 3 knives booths was about $38,000. So again, a key event could be an expensive event for you, but it could also be maybe like the NHRA, those car shows that are 8 days long or 10 days long that bring in a lot of CPO. So key event doesn't have to be like a big show like we have in our territory. It could be a bunch of good shows that are 10 days long that equal as much production as, let's say, a Big E or Orange County Fair, or LA County Fair. So first and foremost, one thing I don't know if we really touched upon was how soon do you guys book up your booths for the next year? Usually applications go out for my shows that happen in the summer. Applications are out from December already. You need to make sure you book them immediately because there's usually a discount, and it's kind of like a first come, first serve. If they know you're that coordinator, that company that, hey, they have the application in within the month it's out and it's paid for, they love you. So make sure you're always aware when that application comes out. So for us, we've already booked up the Orange County Fair and the LA County Fair that happen in July and in September. Another thing I'm doing right now is I'm double confirming our booth locations. There are big sponsors that come in always, like the mattress firms that own spas and chairs and puppies, and they have so many booths. They take up a lot of our area where we have our main booth for the LA County Fair. So I'm always trying to find out, hey, how much territory is this company taking in our area. So I know that my booth needs to be right there. And with our other booths that are just 10 by 20 corners in the other two buildings, last year one of our main building shut down. It was no longer going to be a vendor building. So now I'm like, okay, what's the next area to put my third booth now? And so we found another building. And then cookware moved from one building to the other. So we're always looking logistically where to put our booths and be very strategic and know where the crowd flows through. Also, the biggest areas of improvement in any show really comes down to your people. You know, an event will bring in every year. If it's going to bring in 1.4 million people to that show, every year, give or take, it's going to stay maybe a little bit under, a little bit over. That's not the reason how you're going to grow your show. It's your people. You are only as strong as your weakest link, they say. So you have to make sure everybody on your team is at a minimum of level 8 and above. And it's your responsibility as a coordinator to tell them ahead of time if they're the borderline reps. And you know what I mean by borderline reps? Where you know they could probably work that event, but if you don't kick them in the butt from now, you know they're not going to be a big producer. And that could be a reason why you don't hit that mark you want to. So I always look at, we do an Excel sheet where it's, we don't do this shift average or shift day or whatever. We do it per hour. How much CPO is each person producing per hour? So I have an Excel sheet from 2017, 2018, where we changed the mentality. And someone like a Brandon Brown, just so you know, he will sell close to 700 CPO per hour on average when he's working. My lowest person, which they don't work very much, by the way, is like 100 CPO. Do you see that area of improvement? If one person can produce, let's say, even 500 CPO more per hour, that means times, let's say it's a 10-hour day, that's 5K more being produced from that one person compared to that other person. So we have always these statistics out every year after the show is done. Everybody's aware of where their shift average went from one year to the next. So make them aware, like, hey, you're going to probably not get as many shifts this year because look what you're doing. You're declining over the years. We can't have that. We need you to at least get it up there. And what I suggest is, hey, it's the off season. It's the spring. You need to field train. Go cross train. Come follow this rep. Come follow me. Do something to change and show us that you're changing, or else you're not going to work as much. And of course, if most of my team on Southland, 90% of my team is married and has kids. So guess what? Like if they don't work those shows, they can't provide for their families. So that's one thing you have to be very, very aware of is everybody's situation on your team and how important that event is. So you should feel responsible. If they can't produce, you need to help them get there, or unfortunately, they have to step away from the show. Another big area of improvement I know with our fair is we need to do better at like business gifts. And again, I don't know it all. Brandon doesn't know it all still. Deanna, we don't know it all still. And we're constantly learning. So NET is a perfect place where we kind of start. Before we came into this event, I sat down with like Deanna and Brandon. Because, I mean, Brandon, yes, he co-coordinates with me with LA County Fair. And Deanna is a pinnacle. She could run. She could be a coordinator, but she has a lot of things going on. But for them, I've known them in the business a long time. I went to college with Deanna. So we've known each other a long time. So I know if I go to them, hey, guys, I need help. I need help trying to get the team to sell more business gifts because I don't know how to do it all. And you guys don't know. So let's find a way to learn at this conference how to bring back the goods to our team and implement it. One thing we do as both divisions, because again, I coordinate for Southland, Brandon and Rochelle do LA division. What happens is in June, so 3 months prior to LA Fair starting, we get together and do a combined meeting. It's like a 4-hour training meeting. I have an agenda, so it's our own little mini conference. And we usually have it like Michael's clubhouse at his townhouse area. There's like a clubhouse we could rent out for free. And our manager knows about it, Jay Brad, Kevin Donahue, they know. And if they want to attend, they could attend. And sometimes people like Sally Segario on my team, she's kind of like my unnamed assistant because she doesn't want the title because then she feels that she's obligated to do a lot of things. But the things that she does do is she steps up and designs our specials and things of that sort. She does a little bit more of the admin side when it comes to that stuff. I'll do the chargebacks, but she'll do things of that sort. Anyway, so we get together in June, and we do like a 4 to 5 hour training meeting as a group. Because what's gonna happen is, in June, if I don't do that meeting, guess what happens for me in July and August is Orange County Fair, and my team is stuck, for a month of work doing that fair, and LA Fair has, LA division people have to go do Paso Robles, this Mid-State Fair, in other words, Ventura County Fair, and before the LA Fair starts, they also do Antelope Valley Fair. So guess what? All the good that we're learning and training in June, we're implementing in our other fairs that produce a lot of business. But we have to do it from June because we won't have time during the rest of the summer because we're busy. But we do get together SC2, which is always mid-August, where our main shows for the summer have finished. And we kind of do like a meeting together again. And Kareem is there. And we go over situational stuff like, hey, what if a customer first stops at the knife booth, and then they stop at the cookware booth, and how are we gonna deal with this situation, and the payouts? So a lot of that kind of stuff that we're dealing with at this level, too. So that's what we do kind of with meetings, and, sorry, my thing keeps on closing on me. So pretty much our goal with LA County Fair, we always say, oh, there's always a CPO goal. We always make the team come up with it. My vision back a few years ago was in 2020, 2 million. Of course, we're like at 1,077,000 is what we did last year. We tabbed over 1 million, and then of course, Kareem's, some of his orders tabbed in January, 8K extra. So I don't know how that works with tabulations, but we look at like this year, especially with tabs, we looked at what we shipped and what we tabbed, and I was on top of my reps. No joke, like October, I was like, hey, Deanna, that post-dated order, did it go through? Like, what is going on? Dwayne, what happened to this order? Like I'm on them. Because the truth is, they care so much about their shift average or their shift per hour. They're like, oh, well, I was the #1 shift person. I'm like, no, you weren't. If I take away your canceled orders, this will change a lot. So I make them aware and I bring them down to earth like, look, we are always going to get better. We're not perfect. We have those post-dated canceled orders. It's okay. But let's just keep on learning and growing from other people as well. So hopefully that helped. I mean, that's pretty much what I had. I guess with the Q&A, you guys ask more pointed questions if you need to.